here to talk about multi-sectoral responses for HIV prevention and to mitigate the impact of the epidemic. So I'll be kind of highlighting a range of different academic and publications across the region, mostly produced by the Accelerate Hub, which is a massive consortium led by the University of Cape Town and University of Oxford, and they like to describe themselves as academic activists. So this research will be based, will be pulled out from a range of countries across Africa, some where there's just policy partnerships and some where there's research partnerships. And of course, I stand here presenting this, but this is representing a massive range of people across the continent who've worked very hard on this. A lot of them are here today, but also watching from their own countries now. So let's start with what we've heard over the last day, over the last presentation. HIV risks come in bundles. So before I get into the presentation, I wanted to do a very quick exercise. So when you look at the structural drivers, poverty, gender inequalities, conflict displacement, stigma, and disparities in healthcare, how many people in this room are working on these five dimensions? So the structural drivers, put your hand up. Great. We move to the second circle: gender-based violence, school dropout, food insecurity, transactional sex, poor mental health, and early sexual debut. Put your hand up. Great, some recurring hands already, that's a good sign. And finally, mortality and morbidity, HIV transmission, ART access, and intergenerational impacts. So your hands have pretty much made my point for me. We do need to interrupt these cycles at multiple levels. So global programming must mirror what this room is doing right here. We also know that there is a multiplier effect. So a risk, when combined, becomes duplicated. So when we look at hunger, inequitable relationships, individually, they do increase risk of HIV transmission, but when we look at the combination of a lot of risk factors, that number shoots up. So what can we do? And this is where the concept of accelerator comes in. So accelerators are defined as interventions that affect multiple SDGs at the same time. And as we know, SDGs are already naturally connected. So you can't have food security without good wash and electrification. You can't have good health with a polluted environment. And similarly, you can't end HIV without addressing its discriminatory drivers. So a lot of this research focuses on shifting away from looking at one lens. So when we look at a youth-friendly health clinic, are we just seeing health uptake, one outcome? Or are we seeing a range of benefits across multiple outcomes? So are we seeing increased ART uptake, retention, better health conditions, so wider than HIV? So in reality, what we're seeing is a spectrum of impacts to an intervention that affects multiple SDGs. And just to distill it, this is the one example from South Africa. When we look at the combination of parenting, safe schools, and cash transfers, so improving educational outcomes, economic outcomes, and family-based support, we do see a range of benefits for HIV and beyond, looking at good mental health, better school progression, less rates of violence, so that it really does hit these multiple spectrum of impacts. When we then build on to look at kind of the effects food security has on a highly disadvantaged populations, so adolescent mothers living with HIV, we do see kind of a range of violence reductions as well. And this is some of the work my colleague William Rudgard has led. And these are also some findings from Zambia. Quick shout out to Zambia, where we can see that there are pro-disability impacts when we use multiple packages. So a combination of cash transfers, lifelong learning, and mobile phone access does improve poverty, but there's kind of disaggregated impacts across people living with disabilities and people who aren't. In Kenya, similarly, a combination of food security, positive gender norms, and good education has improved multiple outcomes relating to adolescent pregnancy, child marriage, IPV, and sexual violence. So the general trend is that improving the economic underpinning, the economic driver of risk, in combination with other supporting programs like adolescent-friendly clinics, peer support, mental health, and aspirational support, family support, and school-based interventions, that sort of combination does seem to address multiple outcomes within HIV and beyond. We also have to think about where these layered combined programs are being delivered. So when we look at schools, these are a platform where there's almost expanding outcomes the more you layer interventions. So for example, through a school, you can deliver food and nutritional assistance, wash interventions, SRH, CSE, income generation and skills building. So we do need to find these perfect platforms to be able to deliver these packages. We also have to think about what delivery looks like in fragile settings, so in areas with conflict, with climate shocks, where in Sierra Leone, for example, a combination of microfinance and sexual and reproductive health did have these wider impacts across sexual outcomes, but also towards education. And this leads me to the next big challenge. How can our programming, how can these combined programs build resilience, or how can they contribute to helping people going through shocks? And this is where kind of the triple nexus, so looking at what programs can help to mitigate humanitarian impacts, to support development programs, and to build peace as well. And I don't have an answer for this, but I'm hoping one of you do. This is hopefully, I would love to hear more about this over the coming few sessions. And finally, we do have a lot of this documented. You're very likely to find a brief on your own countries. So please do scan this link and see if you can find what accelerators exist in your countries. Thank you.